University of Toronto, latest Canadian university to copycat the Americans. This is the Great White North Report. So after McGill University, the University of Toronto, they also decided to do an encampment protest. They're just basically following Columbia University in the United States and copycatting, trying to force the universities to divest away from any Israeli companies. Well, why don't we do... But they won't divest from all these companies that have like barbaric Sharia laws, like the killing of gays, apostasy laws, blasphemy laws, stoning for adultery, any of those barbaric practices. I would divest from Saudi Arabia. We should be divesting from Iran too, if there's any like that. Now, for some reason, this whole Hamas-Israeli war has captivated the young people today, not like the Ukraine-Russo war. And it's really bizarre why it's so polarizing. Mainly because it's been in the mainstream for the last... since Israel became a thing in 1948. I, for one, I am not for Hamas. I am actually anti-Hamas. So I am anti-Palestine. They've done nothing but cause trouble instead of going about their lives. So now they got the faculty joining the U of T encampment protest. U of T alumni have signed a letter of support as encampment enters third day. I remember when I went to university, most of the students couldn't have cared less what was going on. You got a couple of far leftist whack jobs on campus, always protesting and doing stuff. But for the most part, I'd say 90% of the actual people that go to a university couldn't give a shit about what goes on. So the pro-Palestinian student protesters are in the third day of their encampment demonstration at the University of Toronto. I wonder how long this is going to last before the police come in and clean them out. Because unless there's students on campus, they're going to wreck the area. It'd be a biological disaster in the end. I wouldn't even allow these students access, these people encamping on there, to have access to any facilities. Let them dig their own hole and trench. Wouldn't give them food, wouldn't give them anything unless they go off campus and go buy from a Starbucks or something. Now, the University of Toronto Saturday saw faculty joining them in support. Robin Maynard, an assistant professor at the University of Toronto, was at the encampment supporting students. She said there are a large number of university faculty there in solidarity. Really, they could lose their jobs for this in the long run. Because eventually the pendulum swings the other way. And there will be a reaction to their action. So a lot of faculty could lose their jobs. The board of trustees and the people that give money to universities to keep them running, unless of course they got Saudi money, which is possible. Be surprised how much money the oil countries in the Middle East give to Canadian universities. And we have to allow students from over there to come over as international students. I've seen it happen. But a lot of these faculty members could lose their jobs if they aren't being careful. I don't think a lot of them want to be named. But this chick, Robin Maynard, I looked her up. She is a black feminist thought, black social movements, abolition. Too late, chick. We already did abolition back in Simcoe's day. She's over 200 years too late. Policing borders and carcerality. Black anti-colonial studies. Black and Indigenous solidarities. Black Canadian studies. So she's obviously with BLM. Like, I couldn't think of anything less likely to attract the support for Hamas than that. Like, in Palestine, you don't have any blacks. You definitely don't have any feminist thought. But she's thinking Israel is imperialist. It's not. I don't think she's ever been to Israel and ever walked the streets. I've never been to Israel, unfortunately. I've known people who have, and they tell me stuff like that. That you can walk. It's pretty safe in Israel. Some places, like any country, you don't go in certain places, but the Israeli Arab Muslim population can mix freely with the Israeli Jewish population and the Israeli Christian population. There are not a lot of restrictions. It's a thriving, peaceful democracy. I wouldn't be surprised if this chick is also a communist and supports them. Because there are a lot of communists coming to support this pro-demonstration, Antifa. The lefties will come and support this, even though Hamas is so far right, it ain't funny. It's one of the ironies. And I find it, again, this unholy alliance between the Black Lives Matter movement, the LGBTQ movement, and now the pro-Palestinian movement. It doesn't work in real life, but they do align themselves for these kind of protests. I feel it's really important that we can be here as witnesses given the kinds of dangers some of the students have been exposed to. What do you mean? They put themselves in danger. They're starting to create problems like they did in Colombia and other campuses where they're barricading themselves in buildings and breaking windows. That is against the law. Trespassing is a law. There are laws against vagrancy too. Where are these kids getting their money from? Their parents? Rich parents? Because it's not cheap to go to a Canadian university. Or they're using government loans, student loans, so the government's funding it. Well, wait till you have to pay it back. These kids should be out getting a job right now, working. It's also important to be here because their demands are important. No, they're not. Asking the university to divest from Israel, it's not important. That will not change this war one bit. If these demonstrations were more about asking for the end to Hamas and the end to Hezbollah, because Iran backs those guys, and Iran, didn't they just kill a bunch of Canadians a couple years ago, 4 years ago, by shooting down an airline? Iran backs these things. We should be looking more at that. But they're demonstrating against the wrong thing because of the propaganda machine and the fact they want to jump on the bandwagon. My daughter at high school, she says a lot of the kids just jumped on the pro-Palestinian bandwagon. Not because they really care, but because it's the cool thing to do. Maynard said academic colleagues and students have been killed in Gaza and the university was destroyed. Well, guess who funds the university? Hamas. Again, has she ever been to Gaza? UNRWA is supposed to run the university, but they don't run it very well. In fact, the university was used to hide weapons by Hamas and also to have underground tunnels linked to it. It's another hidey hole for Hamas, hiding right, this chick needs to, instead of focusing on her useless degree, needs to understand how the world is. Instead of being a far lefty, try to be a centralist and think using your goddamn head. She said the students will not leave until the school divests. Yeah, if I was a school, I wouldn't back down. I'd fire her ass, and I'd send the police in. This is not a good protest to do. This is not a Canadian protest. This is a pro-terrorist protest. You are supporting a terrorist group, Hamas. They win by what you're doing. You're letting the terrorists win. That's how much your degree has made you smarter. And of course, it's going to go into how many people were killed. The 34,000 Palestinians. You notice that number doesn't go up very much, and it doesn't take into, and they have no way to verify it. They just have to go by the Hamas-run health ministry. Yeah, a terrorist-run health ministry. That's where you're getting your numbers. Jesus, I wish these news reporters would wake up. Wreaked vast destruction and brought a humanitarian disaster with several thousand Palestinians in northern Gaza facing imminent famine. Really, why do we always have to feed these people? They supported Hamas. They elected them in. They haven't got rid of them. They still have massive support, Hamas does. October 7th happened, they were dancing in the streets. Ahmad Ayash completed both his master's and PhD at the University of Toronto. Well, he doesn't say what he competed them in. Probably engineering, I imagine. Students believe in supporting this cause. I think they're willing to stay for as long as it takes until UNIT really understands the students are serious. I don't consider these students serious. I consider them a bunch of babies who need a good lesson. So it says here more than 3,100 U of T alumni have signed a letter in support of the students. Yay. So the school is concerned about the use of language at the university as there are reports of threats and other illegal activities. This is nothing new. They've been becoming more and more violent, especially since October 7th. And most of these kids don't even understand what it really means. The Muslim students, most of them do understand what they mean when they say from the river to the sea. But most westernized kids who have no clue what it is, these kids are just dumb. As Ford said, some of what he'd seen and heard about the protests is unacceptable and universities need to move them on. We need to remove these people and these universities have to make a move. I prefer the police to move in because a lot of these kids have probably never been arrested in their life, and I'm sure it would give them a lesson, a painful lesson their parents never taught them. The People's Circle for Palestine, Jesus Christ. If they actually knew what groups like Hamas and Hezbollah did, they're not far off from what ISIS used to do. So now McMaster University has set up a pro-Palestinian encampment indefinitely as campus protests grow. So it's now hitting the universities. Who do you think's funding all these things? Again, it comes back to money. Who's funding it? Who's organizing it? You know, the universities are well funded by Arab donors. Not as bad as the U.S., but Canada does get quite a bit of money from places like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all the Gulf states, all with an agenda. So the demand is to disclose, divest, boycott, and declare investment in weapons, defense contracts, and BDS combines, Israeli academics, institutions, and genocide. How will we do the same thing to Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Qatar? You know, if you're going to do it to Israel, might as well do it to all the Arab countries, because that's where a lot of money comes from for the Canadian universities. But the United States, it's become a big problem. China would be one of the top 5 too. How much do they invest in Canadian universities? 75 demonstrators, including students and some faculty members, set up roughly 24 tents at the Burke Center building field. By midday Monday, around 100 people had gathered. Again, you notice how they never do this in the winter? Now that the weather's nice, they're all of a sudden making encampments. Yeah, these kids don't have the balls to do this in the wintertime. To go protest do their little encampments in the wintertime. Bunch of pansies. So do I support these? I don't support any pro-Palestinian protest. Simply because the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and most of the other places in the Middle East are not thriving democracies. Human rights is just, records are abysmal. Israel is a thriving democratically elected country. It was attacked. It struck back. Again, what would happen if Canada did that to the United States? What would happen? Or if tiny Saint-Pierre-Miquelon had done that over in Newfoundland, what do you think would happen? You know, these kids need to take their head out of their ass and get a dose of reality. As well as the faculty. I would fire a lot of the faculty. Expel the students. You know, it's one thing to protest. Yeah, voice your concern, but when you're being stupid about it, you know, learn something first before you decide to take this leap. It's something Canada definitely doesn't need. At this point in time, we have more pressing things to worry about than worry about something that's happening on the other side of the world. And I, for one, don't approve of this. Thank God I'm smart and I teach my kids better. But anyway, Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of all these little university campus demonstrations. Should we send the police in and arrest a few to make an example of them? And where do you think the money comes from? Leave comments in the comment section. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.